Hey, hey, hey. Holy moly, rock and rolly. It is Wednesday. It's noon. My name is Ron Williams. And if you're here with me today, and I hope you are, I got some interesting, cool strategy to share with you today. If you're a salesperson, this is something you may want to know. Before I start real quick, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing, but welcome this morning. If you're here today, go to, if you haven't already, would love for you to go to, you see down at the bottom where it says StreamYard.com/Facebook, and just say, yeah, it's okay for StreamYard to connect with my Facebook. And all it does is allows you and me to talk better together, because you can message me wherever you are on whatever page you're on. You can comment on this and it'll show up on my end. Without that, I don't know who you are. And that's just no fun. But man, it is almost spring, and I tell you what, even though it's warming up and the days are getting longer, I am so anxious to get out and start planting in the yard. I know Cindy is too. She wants to put out 10,000 flowers and plants to go out in the yard and every corner of the yard. I just do tomatoes. I just put up like massive tomato plants all over the place, and then we have so many, I just give them away, which is a lot of fun. But anyway, what's the weather like where you guys are today? I hope you're doing fantastic and you're having a productive week. So I got a really cool thing to share with you today, something that I learned many years ago, and it's it's what I would call an advanced sales strategy that I absolutely love. And it's something that when you get this and when you start to apply this, when you start to learn this technique, the strategy, it will eliminate a lot of problems that you have. So many times in sales, it seems like realtors will say to me, and so I'm focusing on talking to you realtors that are out there. So many times, but not just realtors, anybody, when we're in a selling profession, so many times people are concerned about, well, rightly so, we're concerned about, well, I don't want to be too pushy, or I don't want to be manipulative. I don't want to be, pushing somebody to do something they don't want. I get it. I totally get it. And we never ever should, but we never ever need to when you learn this kind of strategy I'm about to show you. So I call it selling in the gap, and I'm not the first one to coin that term. In fact, I think there's a book out that's similar to that called Gap Selling, and I apologize, I don't remember the author's name right now, but if you want to look that up, I tell you, there's two good books that you could look at that would help you understand this concept if you're a reader. And one is Gap Selling, and again, I apologize, I don't remember the author's name. I should. And the other one is a book by Neil Rackham called Spin Selling. And also, both of these are very good sales related books. But I want to talk real quickly about this idea of selling in the gap. And as I mentioned in my comments on the presentation here, the presentation notes, this will eliminate number one, it's going to help you serve your clients in a much better way, and it's going to completely eliminate any feeling like, should I reach out to them? Should I try to help them? Just take all that away from you. So many people are concerned about cold calling, or what if I offer to help somebody and it's viewed as being too pushy or something. This eliminates all of that, and will help you to serve them a much better level. So before I tell you what gap selling is, and we're going to do this really quick, I want to share with you something about what I consider advanced selling to be. When you are growing in your sales and growing in your understanding of selling to people, hey Kim, it's good to see you. Thank you for saying hello. Glad that you're here. I got a question for you after we get done here. Anybody else too, by the way, if you're here today, would love for you to say hello. I just do not like doing these videos by myself. If you're here, would love to know that you're here. Just say hi and interact with me a little bit if you would. So, something I want to tell you about, kind of to set the stage for what I'm about to share with you on selling in the gap. And that is that when you get into advanced selling, and when you really start to love what you're doing, and I know you do, but when you really start to go deeper with your selling, one of the things you realize that I realized years ago anyway, and I think you do too, is that selling is really about servant leadership. It's about servant leadership. When you are selling to somebody, you are being a servant leader. Hey, Elka, good to see you. We need to catch up here soon. By the way, Kim and Elka, don't forget tomorrow morning, Zoom training. So would love for both of you guys to be there. But when you start to really understand that selling is little more than servant leadership. Well, what do I mean by that? So, well, let's unpack it for just 1 second. Being a servant is what? It's serving somebody else, right? Leading is leading somebody else. Well, selling is really a function of servant leadership. In other words, you are helping to lead your client, but you're not leading them in a direction that you want them to go. Selling is not about leading somebody towards something where it's good for me and it's not good for them. It should never, ever be about that. Sales, when you really start to learn and love selling, it is leadership, but it's leading them towards their desired outcome. It matters not at all what I want the outcome to be. And so, where we have a problem is we get paid. Excellent. I'll look forward to seeing you there, Kim. Where we have a problem is that, when we're in a sales profession role and we get paid for our services, which we should, a workman is due his wages. And when we're getting paid for it, sometimes it gets confused because with us and also with the people that we're trying to serve, where people feel like, salespeople are, they just want to get their commission. They don't really care what the outcome is for me. And they may not say it that way, but that is the stereotype of what salespeople are. We're just out to get my commission. I'm just out to get, to make my money. And it doesn't matter who or what I'm doing to whom, right? Well, that is not really what sales is about. Okay. Let me catch up with a couple people here. Facebook user, hey, it's good to see you. Except if you go down to this StreamYard.com/Facebook, I'll actually not have to call you Facebook user. I'll be able to refer to you by your name, which is a lot better. Martin Sanchez, welcome, Martin, and good to see you. Gap selling, getting the customer to yes, yeah. So excellent. And that book is by Keenan. Yeah, Keenan. One of those guys he's so famous, he's got one name. So here's the thing: servant leadership. Servant leadership is about and selling, in my opinion, and yours too, I'm sure. We're leading somebody towards their desired outcome, right? We're leading them towards the thing that they want to accomplish. But we're serving because we're helping them to achieve their goal. And ultimately, when we help them to achieve their goal or move towards their goal, their desired trajectory, their outcome, then hopefully we get a win from it as well, and we should, because we're always looking to create a win-win relationship, right? We want to serve them by helping them. We want to lead them by taking them to the direction they want to go. Yes, you did it right, Kim. You did it absolutely right. So servant leadership, it's about serving them and leading them to their desired outcome. Sales is not about cajoling somebody or arm twisting or manipulating or convincing them to do something that is not good for them. if that ever is the case, I mean, so if we ever feel like this outcome that I'm trying to lead them towards, I'm trying to support them to achieve their goal, if it's not really what they want or what they need, then I shouldn't be leading them down that path, right? I know you guys all agree with that. So we never ever need to lead somebody in a direction that is not good for them. Thank you, Donnie. Glad you're here. Good to see you, man. We never need to lead somebody down a path that they don't want to go. We're trying to lead them, but we're leading them towards on their journey. And where we meet them in the sales process, we are meeting prospects in their journey. We're not saying, here, you come over and meet me where I am, and I'm going to take you where I want you to go. No, that's never the case. Never should be the case. We just eliminate that when we have ethics in sales, and I know you guys do. That can be eliminated to the point that my job is helping somebody else get to where they want to go. Now, if I can't help them, if I don't have the means or the capability or the knowledge to help them go where they want to go, then the truth is I really don't have anything to sell. I don't. You know, somebody said to me, well, Ron, you know, I want to build a rocket ship. I want to compete with Elon Musk, and I want to build a rocket ship. There's probably very little, or there's absolutely nothing I could do to help them build a rocket ship, except tell them, you know, go see if you can connect with Elon Musk and maybe he can help you, right? And the same is true if we're trying to help somebody with buying a new home or buying a home or selling a home. If we're trying to help a builder or a developer or a new construction buyer, that's my gig right there, right? Is working with builders, developers, new construction buyers, and helping realtors help builders, developers, and new construction buyers. And so if I don't have any knowledge or capability of helping somebody on their path, I've got nothing to sell. I know, Kim's going, you're beating a dead horse, Ron. You're just beating this thing to death. But I wanted to kind of lay that out in order to understand that, you know, there really is never, ever any need for us to feel like we're pushing somebody. And if you ever have a sense that I'm pushing somebody in the wrong direction, you know, maybe you need to check that inside yourself. And if you are struggling with this at all, and you're like, well, I don't like to make cold calls, or I don't want to pick up the phone, or I don't want to reach out to somebody, I don't want to do any outreach, I don't want, whatever it is, whatever your method is, cold calls or door knocking or sending a postcard or whatever you're doing, those are all just methods of outreach. So if you really have a problem with outreach and you need to talk to somebody, you can always reach out to me, okay? And I'll be happy to talk to you about this, and we can kind of talk about this. But that's kind of the foundational idea before we talk about selling in the gap. So we're meeting them in their journey. And in order to do that, what we have to do is we have to discover where they are on their journey, right? We have to know where they are and where they want to go. And, you know, maybe this sounds simplistic to you. To me, it was revelatory. You know, when I really got this and started to apply this many, many years ago, before I was even a realtor, I was using this as a headhunter and executive recruiter. And where I'm spending time, and, you know, when we qualify somebody, we're not just qualifying their capability to be able to achieve the thing that they want to achieve. So that's part of it. You know, if I'm qualifying a buyer who wants to build a new home or buy a brand new home or buy any home, right? You know, we spend time identifying, well, are they going to be able to do this? And the other thing that we're qualifying, though, is, well, what is it that they want to accomplish? What is it that, you know, where are they trying to go? Kim says, I agree. Meet them where they are. Absolutely. So we're meeting the buyer or the seller, we're meeting our client in their journey. And we have to identify, okay, where are they today? And where do they want to be tomorrow? Where are they today? Where do they want to be tomorrow? You guys see this? See this right here? That's the gap. Where are they today? Where do they want to be tomorrow? That is the gap. I know it sounds silly, doesn't it? But when you start to get this, it will change the way you're selling. It will change the way you're communicating to prospects and clients that you're working with. Okay. Because what we always have to do is we have to discover that gap. Now, if I should have put together a slide, but I'm I don't know, too lazy or non-techie to do that. But here's the gap right here. This is reality, their reality. This is their desired outcome. Reality today, desired outcome. To me, this is really important, okay, when you get this down. Because in here, between today and desired outcome, and if you guys are taking any notes, I would draw that. Okay, just draw 2 lines, and then right in the middle of it, the gap. Okay, that is the gap between reality of their situation today and desired outcome. And hang on a second. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that. And that could be with anything that you're selling. If you were a fitness trainer, right? It would be where's your current health situation and your 6-pack or your lack of 6-pack, and where do you want to be, right? If it was mental health, if it was you're trying to help somebody stop smoking cigarettes, whatever it is, if it was a relationship service that you're providing, you're identifying what the gap is, and we have to fill the gap. Exactly right, Kim. We have to help them. We don't fill the gap, but we're moving them from their reality to where they want to be. Okay. Easy peasy, right? So the problem comes in that a lot of times we don't really understand well, or we haven't taken the time to understand well, what is that gap? We don't know, and so we ask a few questions a lot of times. So let's just say with a buyer, say somebody wanted to buy a house, and we talk to them. Well, tell me about the house you'd like to buy. Well, I'd like a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2.5-car garage. You're not putting it in the MLS like that. Boom, I got it. And we're going. They just want a house, right? But a lot of times we don't fully understand what's in that gap, right? And so a couple things that you got to know about the gap. The closer, the smaller the gap, the less opportunity that you have to sell anything. Because if they say, well, let's say we're talking to a buyer, or a potential buyer, and you're talking to somebody and they go, well, yeah, Kim, well, yeah, Donnie, we kind of thinking about maybe buying another house, right? We're kind of thinking about building a house. And you want to start to ask questions around their journey and understand their journey to where they want to go. We have to ask questions to identify, well, where are they today? Where do they want to be on this thing? This thing right now that we're talking about, we need a new house, right? We need a new house. Maybe it's not a new construction, it's just a new house, right? And so you want to ask enough questions to understand what you want to understand. What's their desired outcome? Where are they today? What's the size of the gap? And also, what are the things that are keeping them from achieving it? Does this make sense? You guys with me? And if we don't understand the gap, then a lot of times we are selling to the wrong thing. We're trying to push them towards something that they really don't want or don't need. Where, why, and when exactly. And the size of the gap, the bigger the gap, the more opportunity you have to move them towards their desired outcome. So example, let's say you're talking to somebody and Martin, you're out meeting with some sellers. Elke, you're out meeting with some people who want to buy a new house, some buyers rather. And they're like, yeah, we're kind of thinking about buying a new house. And it would be very easy that a lot of times we as salespeople will go, well, let's just go get that done. We don't understand that maybe that gap isn't so big. Okay. And the way that I learned to do this was I started asking questions around, well, tell me a little bit about that. And that's a good way. That's a good way to start this conversation with people when you're discovering what is the gap between where they are and where they want to be. How big is that gap? What exactly does the outcome look like that they're looking for? And what's the thing that's keeping them from achieving it? So I would write those few things down. Okay. Where are they today? Where do they want to be? What does their outcome look like? How big is the gap? And what's keeping them from achieving it or moving forward on it? So for example, somebody says, well, we're thinking about maybe building a house, or we're thinking about maybe changing homes, upgrading homes, whatever. And it's really easy for us to want to kind of jump on that and go, well, let's go get it done for you, without really diving in and understanding really how big is the gap. And so one of the first things I start with would be, well, tell me about that situation. Tell me about your current house. And, tell me about your current situation. Tell me about your current home. And so they tell you about the current home. And what you're starting to do is you're starting to discover, and you might start with, well, what do you love about your current situation? What do you love? What's worked for you well with your current house? And then the other thing that we want to understand is what's not working well with your current situation. Keep in mind, when you start to understand this process and understand these questions, and this is what I call consultative selling. This is right down the line of consultative selling. But this basic process will work in any kind of sales situation that I can imagine. If I were talking to a builder or a developer who we also serve as new construction specialists, maybe it's not about a house. Maybe it's about, maybe we're talking about their marketing outreach. Maybe we're talking about the number of units that they're selling and the number of units that they need to be selling or that they want to sell. Maybe I'm talking to them about their business, and I discover that they're having a problem with connecting with more buyers. And that may not be the problem for a lot of builders today. It will be very again in the near future, by the way. But right now, a lot of builders are full up, or at least some of the builders are. But maybe they're not getting the right prospects, they're not getting the right buyers. And so you're asking questions around, tell me your current situation, tell me where you want to be. And so tell me about this. And so you start with an interview question like that to discover, well, tell me about what you're doing marketing wise right now. What do you like about that? What don't you like about it? What seems to be working about it today, or what's worked up till now? What's not working for you? And let them tell you, and you should be taking like copious notes as people are telling you. But really advanced and consultative selling is more about just asking questions and determining, where are they today? Where do they want to be? And do I have the ability to help them move towards that? It's what I used to call a wound search. Back when in my recruiting days, many, many decades ago now, before I was Hoodle, before I was doing Hoodle, before I was a realtor, I was a executive recruiter. And this is where I learned this process. And if you're asking somebody, for instance, about, you're talking to a builder and you're asking them, well, and they say, well, Kim, I'm not really feeling like we're getting all the buyers that we need. So let's say that they've said that. Well, it's also what I would call a wound search, because once you identify what the pain point is that they want to address, if it's something that I can help them with, it's something you can help them with, then you need to go further with it. So you need to do a little bit of a wound search. And so you begin to ask questions around, well, what are you doing today? What's working? What's not working? Why do you feel like it's not working? What does it need to be in order to really be something that you would feel good about and be satisfied with? The same is true, Martin, the same is true, Donnie, if you were asking them about their experience with working with realtors. Let's say that was the thing. And you get into a conversation where you're asking, well, tell me about your experience with realtors. what's worked well about it in the past, what has not worked well about it. In fact, here's a very good type of questioning strategy that you can use, which is a 1 to 5 scale. And when you learn to do this, it is incredibly, incredibly powerful, because one of the things you can start to do is when you're interviewing a client or a prospect, and you're trying to see if you can add value to them, if you can do servant leadership and help to lead them to where they want to go, one of the things you might want to ask is they express to you what, what's not working well. And we're always looking for what's the pain point. If there is no pain in whatever it is that we're talking about, then we really have nothing to sell. If they go, if we're trying to talk to them about, well, I can get you more buyers, and they're going, you know what, I got all the buyers I can handle right now. That may not be the thing that we're supposed to be helping them with. Now, I will say this about realtors, okay, and builders. There are other things. There are other ways you can serve them, that you can lead them, that you can help them achieve what they want to achieve, even if they're full up on buyers, okay? So we have to be careful that we're understanding clearly, we're identifying a pain point, and how big is the pain? How big is the gap? And a lot of times we'll use a kind of a 1 to 5 scale. In other words, let's say that and I should probably role play this with you guys sometime. That would be really good. But, let's say you're talking to them, and they say, well, we're just not getting, I don't feel like Kim, we're really getting to the right buyers that we're looking for. We're getting buyers, but we're not getting the buyers that really fit for us. So I probably, once I heard that, I'd probably jot it down, and then I'd say, well, tell me about that. And, what are you doing now? What are you doing? Where do you want to be? What would it look like if it was working perfectly on this problem? And then I would ask probably something along the lines of a 1 to 5 scale. So it'd be like, well, John, if you were going to measure your ability on this right now, or your ability to reach the buyers that you're really looking to reach, how effective would you say that you are today on a 1 to 5 scale? 1 being, oh my gosh, it's a disaster, and 5 being, it could not be any better ever. Perfect. And then let them tell you that, because a lot of times what they'll say is, well, Martin, I guess I'd say we're probably 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5. So whatever it says, I'm writing it down, 2/5 on this problem. And then, in exploring the gap, the next thing I want to say is, well, what do you feel like makes it a 2? In other words, what are you doing well or not well? What do you feel like is missing? What keeps it from being a 5? If things were perfect in your relationship with the realtors you've worked with in the past, if that was the problem, what keeps it from being a 5? What does a 5 look like? What does an ideal outcome look like? And so you're always measuring, how big is the gap, and, what makes it a 2 or a 3 or whatever number they gave you? What keeps it from being a 5? What would it take to move it closer to being a 5 type of relationship that you have with your realtors that you're working with? And when you start to kind of download this idea and apply it, it is so incredibly powerful, because it frees you from ever feeling like, I got to push this person or this company to do something that they don't really want to do. You're always going to be in alignment with only serving those who want you to serve and lead them. Okay. Is this making sense at all? I know there's only a few of you that are here right now. But tell me if it's making sense. Tell me if it resonates. And you're always, once you start to do this and you're measuring the gap, you're always going to continue measuring the gap. And throughout that entire relationship. And if you're working with a buyer or a seller, thank you, Kim. If you're working with a buyer or a seller or a builder or a prospect that you're trying to move into a client, you're always going to continue to measure that gap and always be looking for, am I moving them towards where they want to be? Thank you, Elko. Am I moving them towards where they want to be? Now, if I asked somebody, well, let's say I'm talking to a builder and I'm talking about their ability to outreach to buyers or get the right buyers, or do they have enough buyers? Are they getting buyer leads? Are they doing effective outreach on the web? Any of those type of issues, and those are all different problems, by the way, and require a different solution and a different approach as a salesperson or as a servant leader who's trying to help them with achieve their goal, their outcome, right? But let's say we're talking about their ability to reach their ideal target buyers. And we said, so, and they expressed that this was a problem for them. And Alki said, so, where would you say that is on a 1 to 5 scale, John? If we were to say, 5 is, I have ideal clients. I have all the ideal clients that I want, buyer clients that I want, 1 being, oh my gosh, it's a disaster. Where would you put your ability on in this particular category on a 1 to 5 scale? And let's say that they said, well, Elka, it's kind of a 4.5. What that tells me is that's a little bitty gap. It's probably a 4.9, hardly no gap at all. Okay. If there is no gap between where they are and where they want to be, I got nothing to sell. Okay. At least not in this category. I cannot help move them forward if they're already where they want to be. That's why we always talk about, and you guys have probably heard me talk about, always looking at the buyer response modes. Are they in pain? Are they in growth? Are they even keel? Are they overconfident? Okay, if they're even keel, if they're overconfident, like, hey, I'm exactly where I need to be, then don't try to sell. Thank them, build your relationship with them and look for other ways that you can serve them, or look for another client that you can serve better. The same would be true if, if somebody, a buyer, somebody says to me, well, we're thinking about, Elka, we're thinking about buying a new home. And I started to explore around that, and I'm trying to discover the gap here. Well, tell me about your existing place where you are, and what do you like about it, and what don't you like about it. And if you were to, measure it on a 1 to 5 scale, John, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if you're measured on a 1 to 5 scale, your current house being ideally what we want, and 1 being, oh my gosh, it's a disaster, get me out of here today. Where would you put your, where would you put your current satisfaction with your current situation on that? And they say, well, Elka, it's probably it's a 1 out of 5. Okay, I got a pretty big gap there that I can serve. I got a pretty big window of opportunity that I can help to move them forward to where they want to be. Is this making sense? I would tell you that when you start to get this, it is incredibly freeing. It is incredibly powerful, and it moves you from being, or a lot of realtors feeling like, well, I don't want to push somebody. There's never ever a need to push. There's always a need to discover. And the more you discover and you take a discovery approach in your sales, the more people are just like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Elka. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Martin. Because you're asking the questions to discover what their pain is. And that's exactly right, Kim. Yeah, exactly right. You're discovering how motivated they are and what are they motivated by and what's working for them, what's not working for them, and you're moving them towards their goal. So that is really what gap selling is. And when we recognize that that our biggest job, or one of our biggest jobs in working with anybody, is just discovering, number one, is there a gap? Is there a gap between where they are and where they want to be in this thing? Okay. And how big is that gap? And what would close the gap? What does it look like to close the gap? Now, I know in sales, a lot of times we're taught to what are you looking for house-wise? Well, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2.5-car garage, and we're off to the races, but we really don't understand exactly what's kept them from achieving this. And so what happens a lot of times is we think we know, but we haven't taken the time to discover how big the gap is and what is the gap and are we actually moving them towards that. And then the outcome becomes a lot of times where we go and we do work because we think we know, we think we understand how motivated they are, but we haven't done the work to really discover how big is that motivation, how big is that gap. And so we're off, and then next thing you know, they're like, well, Kim, yeah, I know we've looked at 37 houses, but this one still isn't perfect. And, I think we need to look at 37 more. And you're frustrated, and they might be frustrated, and you're going, what in the heck? Or they ghost you, right? What is going on? And in a lot of cases, it's because we haven't really understood the gap well. And so that is the gap. And let me see if I got anything else I can add to this. It's also what I would call a wound search. And we're always constantly measuring it. Now, I would advise that what you want to do is you want to begin to write down questions today. And a good way to do this is to do it in a spreadsheet or do it on your computer, or if you're an analog person and you just like to write on paper, then write them down on paper. But if you are working with a seller or a home buyer, what are the questions that you would ask? What are different kinds of questions? And by the way, you can have more than one. I always did, and I always do. I'll have several different 1 to 5 scale questions. And I'm asking around that scale. And if they say, well, I'm a 3 out of 5 on this thing. Okay, well, what makes it a 3? What keeps it from being a 5? What would a 5 look like? If they say, tell me about your current relationship with realtors. I mean, how well is that working for you on a 1 to 5 scale? They say, well, it's a 1. Really? Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. What makes it a 1? Or what makes it a 2? Doesn't matter what the number is. What keeps it from being a 4 or a 5? What would that look like? And the more you ask questions around that, you're exploring the size of the gap. So a couple things I'd say on this. All right. One is don't go with your number one, don't go with your gut. Okay. Well, I already know. They told me they need a new realtor. Really? Okay. We want to understand exactly what their expectations are better. Okay, so that we can be that 4 or 5 realtor in serving them as a buyer or as a seller. Okay. But, we start to discover the size of the gap, what makes it so. And by, asking questions around what makes it a 2, what keeps it from being a 4, what keeps it from being a 5, what would it look like if it was a 4 or 5? What would an ideal scenario look like for you in the new house that you want to own with the new realtor that you want to work with? Okay. And when you're doing this, first of all, most realtors don't do this. They're just not doing it. Okay. You will be so respected and they begin to see you more as a consultant than somebody that's trying to just push them down the road so you can get a commission check. Okay. That's not ever our goal. Yes, we all need to eat. We all need to get paid. But when you start to take a consultative approach, which is much more about asking questions than trying to convince, you will be respected. You will be sought out. You will be referred out like you cannot believe. And so what I start to say about questions is get yourself a spreadsheet or a sheet of paper and start writing them down. I think you put them in a spreadsheet and you begin to build a vocabulary or a library of different types of exploratory questions to understand what their current situation is and what that situation needs to be. When you really start to dive deeply into advanced selling or consultative selling, as we teach teach the affiliate realtors, you'll find that selling is more about asking questions than it is giving answers almost all the time. It's just about discovering where they are and where they want to be and helping them to discover, this is a thing, or you're a person, or this is a home that they're looking for. and helping to lead them down their path. So let me see if there's any other things I want to add here. I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered this pretty well. Now, there are a couple books that I mentioned, and if you're a reader, I would go look for those. I think Keenan actually has some videos about it, and very good book. But this is kind of I think, a decent summary to get you started. If you want to know better questions to ask, and you're not, well, what kind of questions can I add to my artillery? Feel free to reach out, and we can kind of talk through that a little bit. But I definitely would be jotting these things down and start to create for yourself a library of questions that you can ask for various types of situations. You're discovering the pain, you're discovering where they are, where they want to be, you're exploring the gap, and you're asking questions to understand how to move them forward at the speed and at the right trajectory of where they want to go. You're meeting them in their journey. Guys, thank you so much for being with me here today. I hope that made a little bit of sense. And most of all, if it did, I hope you go out and use it today or this week or in the coming days to go get more business and serve somebody at a higher level. Last couple things here I'll share with you. If you are not, if you're watching this anywhere other than in one of our groups, there is a group called New Home Niche Blueprint, no, that's the registration. There's a group called New Home Niche Blueprint on Facebook. This is not it, but I need to create another banner. And if you're wanting to grow in new construction and looking to find a community, we have a group for realtors and a lot of builders and interior designers and builder salespeople and others that are joining the group as well. It's a great place for you to get plugged in and get connected and start learning how can I grow a niche in new construction. Would love to have you guys join us there. If you're wanting to find out, well, how do I actually grow a niche in new construction and how do I become a part of Hoodle and want to go deeper, we do a weekly webinar these days on Sunday nights. This is where you can go register for the webinar that we're doing this Sunday night, and would love to connect with you guys and see if we can help you move forward in the direction that you want to go with becoming the go-to realtor for residential new construction. Hey, I love you guys. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time. I talked way too long today, and hopefully I won't talk as long the next time. But bless you guys. Have an amazing day, and we will catch you later. Bye.